Good morning, everybody. So today I'm here to talk about wrapping up new releases that I've been reading and talking about anticipated releases for 2020, for the end of 2023 and the beginning of the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. All right, so for anticipated releases backlog, the November and October releases I'm still waiting to pick up at the library are Toto by A.J. Hackwith, who is the author of The Library of the Unwritten, and Throne of Secrets by Kerri Maniscalco, the latest book in her spin-off series to Kingdom of the Wicked. So those books are still on my whole list at the library. I'm hoping to get them in soon. For December new releases. Oh, and I'm also looking forward to the Wicked movie tie-in book. And I am seeing the Wicked movie on Tuesday, and I'm very, very, very excited about it. I will be talking about that in my in the video that I do with Matt. That is our January and December wrap up. So for anticipated releases for December, I am looking forward to Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson, which came out on the 3rd. I am looking forward to reading Private Rights by Julia Armfield, the same person who wrote Our Wives Under the Sea, which is a modern retelling of King Lear that came out on Friday. I am looking forward to reading The Christmas Book Hunt, Jenny Colgan's latest release. I have read her backlist of Christmas books for the past couple of weeks, and also in the summertime I read The Bookshop on the Corner, and all of her books are set in Scotland, and I just love how immersive her books are with transporting you to the setting of Scotland. And we recently made a recipe that is in the back of Midnight at the Christmas Bookshop, which we gave 8 out of 10 to. We made the knishes, but we did our own spin on it, and we ate them open-faced due to a supply issue we had with kitchen supplies. So we will be remaking that recipe once we have the proper supplies. The other anticipated release, I have received 2 arcs from L.L. Gay through Book Sirens that I am reading. I have been reading her Havenwood mystery series since the beginning of September, and I have loved all her books. The Christmas installment of this book is based around a local theater production that the main characters are trying to solve the mystery around, so that way the holiday production that the theater is doing can put their production up safely. And I am almost done reading the arc of this. I am going to probably finish it today. I gave it 5 stars, and that book is called The Secret of the Silver Serpent. And her next book in this series, which comes out February 1st, but for some reason, Goodreads is saying it comes out on December 31st. The arc that I received, though, says it comes out on February 1st, so that's a little bit misleading and confusing with the dates. But I am 50% done reading this arc, and much like the rest of the books in her series, I am really enjoying it. So for anticipated releases for January 2025, I am looking forward. The first book I wanted to talk about today is A Sea of Unspoken Things. This is Adrienne Young's latest release. She has written the Fable duology and Spells for Forgetting. I read Spells for Forgetting at the end of September. I love the atmosphere. It says it's a mystery set on an island in Washington State that is about, I would say, an hour from Seattle. So I just love the setting of that book. The mystery was a little bit predictable, so I gave that book 3.5 stars. The next book is Beautiful Ugly. This is Alice Feeney's new release. Sarah Caroli recommended Alice Feeney to me last year. I mean, at the beginning of this year. She really hypes her books up as very good. I have read 3 books by her. Good Bad Girl, which I gave 3.5 stars to. Daisy Darker, which I gave 2.5 stars to. And Rock, Paper, Scissors, which I gave 3.5 stars to. So Daisy Darker is a modern retelling of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. And I had to DNF this book at 50% because the plot seemed predictable. None of the characters were likable, and the narrator was very unreliable. But I'm excited for Beautiful Ugly. Sarah recently read that in one of her Bookmas videos, so I'm excited to see if our opinions will match up once I read it. The next book is one of my highly, highly, highly anticipated releases. I've mentioned it in a couple of other videos. So the next book I'm going to talk about today is Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. It's the 3rd book in her Rome, Kentucky series that has When in Rome and Practice Makes Perfect in it. I love her writing. When in Rome focuses on Noah and Amelia. Amelia is a pop star who pulls into the town of Rome, Kentucky to take a break from her singing career. Amelia is so Alexis Rose from Schitt's Creek coded, I couldn't get over it. So if I could write a fan fiction based on this book, I would combine it with It Happened One Summer, because Piper from It Happened One Summer is also based off of Alexis. So I don't know if Sarah Adams was inspired by Schitt's Creek when she wrote When in Rome, but that's my theory. So Noah works in a bakery, and the cover of When in Rome is Amelia and Noah baking something, and that made me think of the episode of Schitt's Creek where David and Moira are making the enchiladas, and Moira says, "Fold into cheese." So I gave When in Rome 4 stars. And then the second book in the series, Practice Makes Perfect, I read back in May. It is based on Noah's little sister, Annie, who has a lot of relationship issues. And she goes to Amelia's bodyguard, Will, for help with her relationships. So it's kind of like a Eliza Doolittle and Henry Higgins pairing, only modern day. And I think that their relationship is really cute. Will reminds me a lot of Joey from Friends because he's a womanizer who is really sweet on the inside. And I don't know if that was the intention that Sarah Adams was going for either, but that's just the vibe that I got from his character. So Beg, Borrow, or Steal is coming out on January 7th, and Sarah Adams is coming to Portland for a book signing after the book is released, so I'm super excited to get to meet her. The next January release that I am anticipating is called The Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. So this book, based on the synopsis, it kind of has similar vibes to it than like The House on the Cerulean Sea and The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. So I'm very excited to read this book and see what comparisons I can make between these characters and the characters in those books. Grady Hendrix has written 2 books this year. He is a new horror author that I got introduced to through, I believe, Riley Marie, Sarah Without an H, and Katie Coulson. The first book I read of his, I give 5 stars to. It is called My Best Friend's Exorcism. The description on the back of the book says it is a combination of The Exorcist and Beaches, which is a perfect description. I totally agree. I gave that book 5 stars. It's a horror book, but it's like really campy. So I wasn't really too scared by it, except for maybe the part with the exorcism. The next book that I read of his that I really liked was The Final Girl Support Group. And this book is set in modern day, and it is basically the whole book is a therapy session for final girls, which are survivors at the end of horror movies. So think of like The Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and Scream, movies like that. So I read this book in March and October, and I have come up with a theory. So I found out in the summertime that Scream 7 is coming out in 2026. I have watched the first Scream movie for the past 2 Halloweens, because I've been watching movies with Friends actors in them to kind of vary with the other Friends actors in them, so I'm not watching so many movies with Matthew Perry all the time. So, my theory that I came up with for Scream 7 after reading The Final Girl Support Group is that Sidney Prescott is in therapy after all of the years of her life that she has been dealing with the Ghostface killer, because I have not seen any of the other Scream movies yet, but I have read the synopses of all of them, and Ghostface keeps coming back. Different people are like dressed up as him. And in Scream 4, actually, I was watching a video on Miss Mojo the other day, which I'll link in the description, about plot twists that really surprised us. And the plot twist in Scream 4 is that, okay, if you have not seen Scream 4, skip ahead. But I'm assuming if you are a fan of the Scream series, you have seen all of the movies up to this point and are anticipating the release of Scream 7 in 2026. In Scream 4, Sidney finds out that Ghostface is her cousin Jill. So my theory is that in Scream 7, Sidney will be going to therapy to deal with the trauma she has dealt with since she was a teenager with the Ghostface killer, and the added level of the trauma that has built onto that, because in an earlier movie she realizes that her cousin was Ghostface, and maybe her cousin and her will have a therapy session together. So Scream came out in 1996, and it starred Courtney Cox, Neve Campbell, and David Arquette. David Arquette was married to Courtney Cox at the time. He also guest starred on Friends in the episode where he plays the stalker of Phoebe's sister Ursula. So in the Scream movies, he plays Dewey. He meaning David Arquette. He plays Dewey, who is the cop in this movie. And he is the brother of Sidney's best friend Tatum, who is played by Drew Barrymore. And you see a little bit of a spark begin to fly between Dewey and Gale Werther's in the first movie. So I'm not sure if I'm planning to see the rest of the series, just because I was so underwhelmed by the ending of the first movie. But I did love how Gale Werther's was so mean at the beginning, but then she has a role reversal because she's so pissed at Billy and Stu for doing the killings. And she basically says, "Your time is up, asshole," or something like that. So my theory for Gale is that she and Dewey get married eventually and they have kids. I really hope that happens because I like the sparks that I saw between them fly in the first movie, and I don't know if their relationship like continues to go along in the other movie. But at that time, Courtney Cox and David Arquette were married, so I don't know if part of their chemistry was because they were married at the time, but they got divorced in 2013, I think, so I don't know if my theory would be actually true that Dewey and Gail would be a couple and have kids based on the fact that in real life they're divorced. They've been divorced for like, I don't know how long they've been divorced, 2013, 11 years I think they've been divorced. So the next new release I'm talking about today is called The Starlit Heir by Amelie Howard. I have read another book by Amelie Howard this year called Never Met a Duke Like You, which is a modern retelling of the 1995 movie Clueless, starring Alicia Silverstone and Paul Rudd. And I really love this model retelling, especially how Amelie Howard wrote a Regency romance character that has my disability of neurodivergency. I'm neurodivergent, which means I have a disability that is on the autism spectrum but is not autism, and that is the same disability that Vesper, the main female character, Never Met a Duke Like You, has. And those disabilities were not well known in the Regency era, so the Regency era, think Bridgerton or Pride and Prejudice. And one thing I also like about Bridgerton for disability representation is the fact that Simon has a stutter. And again, disabilities like that were not diagnosed back then. And I hate how Simon's dad treats him because of his stutter. I think he's like really mean to him. So The Starlit Heir is a fantasy book, and I can't wait to see what the characters are like in this book. It's coming out at the end of January on the 28th, I believe. Oops, excuse me. So the next anticipated release I wanted to talk about is called Deep End. And this is Ali Hazelwood's new romance that comes out February 1st. And I have loved all of Ali Hazelwood's books except for Check and Mate, but I mostly did not like Check and Mate because I have never played chess in my life and I just couldn't get into the romance because it's between two chess players. But everything else she has written has been between 4 and 5 stars. Deep End Focus is a romance in between two swimmers, and I can't wait to see what that is going to be like. The next book I wanted to talk about is Tessa Bailey's new release, Dreamgirl Drama, which I just actually went back and reread the synopsis. And I realized that this book is a romance between a guy and his girlfriend's mom, which I think is a little weird. So hopefully I like this book. So Tessa Bailey is well known for writing really smutty books, which are like books with a lot of sex scenes. And like usually I'm not a big fan of smut. But the first book I read by her, called It Happened One Summer, I thought the smut in that book was actually really well written because it's mostly in the inner monologue of the main female character, Piper, who is based off of Alexis from Schitt's Creek. And I just thought those scenes were really funny. I didn't like the main character, the guy character. His name is Brendan. And then the second book in this duology, Hook, Line, and Sinker, is about Piper's sister Hannah and one of the other fishermen, Fox. And Fox has a lot of trauma with relationships. He's kind of like Chandler from Friends in a way, with the fact that he's like so emotionally stunted with his relationships because he's very socially awkward, and Hannah basically is his therapist for like the whole entire book, trying to get him through his relationship trauma, and that got old after a while. And then I have recently reread her holiday book, Wreck the Halls, and I review that book a little bit more in my holiday book tier ranking video, which will be in the description. I've also read her baseball romance, Fix Her Up, which I wasn't really a big fan of. I think I gave that book 2.5 to 3 stars. It Happened One Summer and Hook, Line, and Sinker got 4 stars. Her latest Christmas book, Window Shopping, got 5 stars. I'm sure there was smut in there somewhere, but the romance and the holiday vibes of that book really overshadow the smut for me, so I thought that was fine. The next book is called The Queen of Crime by Marie Benedict. So I first heard about this author through a video on Haley Pham's channel because she read the book The Personal Librarian. So I went to the library to pick up The Personal Librarian. I had to DNF it. I liked learning about this character who was a black librarian in the 1800s who had to mask as white because she didn't want to lose her job. But I just didn't like her as a character, and I didn't like how the relationships developed, so I had to DNF it. And then I read another book by her back in the summertime called The First Ladies, which was interesting. I gave The Personal Librarian 2.5 stars, and The First Ladies like 3.5 to 4 stars. So the Queen of Crime seems to be set in the time with Marie Antoinette, and I'm excited to see what that book will be like and if I will like it better than The Personal Librarian. Hopefully I will give it a 4-star rating. The next book is The Dressmakers of London. This will be my second book by this author, Julia Kelly. The first book I read by her, let me just look it up on Goodreads, because now I can't remember what it's called. February. Julia Kelly. Where is it? Here it is. The book that I read by her earlier this year is called The Whispers of War, which I gave 4 stars to. All of her romance books are set during World War II, and I have been on a kick this year of reading books set in World War II because I think I might want to write a historical fiction set in that time period. So I am excited for her new release, which comes out on February. Sorry about that. February 18th. Oh, another book coming on February 18th that I'm excited about is Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is the second book in the series with Heartless Hunter. Heartless Hunter was one of my 5-star reads this year. It is a romance between a witch and a witch hunter, and I just loved the enemies to lovers dynamic build up between them. So I can't wait to see what happens next in this series. I'm super excited. The next The next February release I am excited about is called Upon a Starlit Tide. This is by Kel Woods. She wrote After the Forest, which is a modern fairy tale retelling that tells what happens after Hansel and Gretel. This book is a crossover fairy tale retelling of Cinderella and The Little Mermaid. So I'm really excited to see how this author combines aspects from these two fairy tales together. The next book is called Memorial Days by Geraldine Brooks. I have read 3 other books by this author this year. They are called The People of the Book, Horse, and March. March was my favorite because I've been on a kick of reading classics, and one of my favorite classics that I've read this year is Little Women. March is a retelling of Little Women from Mr. March's perspective. He is the father in Little Women who is away at war throughout the whole book, and I just love how he tells his story about being away at war. And the scene that is the most emotional is the conversations that he has with Marmee during the scenes where Beth is sick. And that made me cry because, as you know, because I talked about it in my end of the year book tag video, which will also be linked in the description box, that Little Women made me cry because of Beth's death. So I gave all of her books 4 stars, so I'm very excited, and I'm predicting that this will either be 4 or 5 stars. And I will go back at the end once I finish talking about all of these new releases and talk about what I think my ratings will be. The next book is The Bookstore Keepers by Alice Hoffman. So this is by the same author of Practical Magic, and I have read the first 2 books in the Practical Magic series, as well as White Horse, and I have enjoyed all of her books so far. This year, I'm excited for her new book because I love books that are set in bookstores. Books that I have read this year that are set in bookstores are The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colgan. I'm waiting to read her latest holiday release, The Christmas Book Hunt. And I've also read The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery, which was another Haley Pham release that's Slade, by the way. Not a Haley Pham release, I'm sorry. A Haley Pham recommendation that's Slade. So I'm also excited to watch the movie of The Story Life of A.J. Fickery. I hope my library has it. The next book that I wanted to talk about is Spell Strings and Forgotten Things by Brianne Randall. This is by the same author as The Unfortunate Side Effects. The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic, which I read in February and October and loved. So I can't wait to see what new adventures the characters in this book go on. And my favorite new romance author who was introduced to me this year through Lexi's mom, Debbie McComber, who just came out with a new holiday release called A Christmas Duet, which I gave 4 stars to. She is coming out with new releases back to back from December through February, which I am excited about. They are called Fresh Starts, which comes out on January 21st. The Perfect Mismatch, which comes out on February 25th. And I thought I saw it. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Hang on. Okay, sorry. Oh, That's March. I'm sorry, that's why I got confused. So she is coming out with new releases in February, January, and December, which I have covered. Okay. So the next new release for that I am going to be talking about is A Riddle at the Revelry, which is the fourth book in the Havenwood Mystery series by L.L. Gay. I have loved this author's writing. I have read the arcs of all her books through Book Sirens, and I am just addicted to her mysteries. The plot twists are great. Her December release, which I have finished reading the arc for, was just released on December 1st, and it is a holiday mystery. I think I just talked about this actually, but I will rehash my review because I gave it 5 stars. It is a holiday mystery called The Secret of the Silver Serpent, which is about a theater performance, and they're trying to solve this mystery so they can make sure that the theater performance doesn't get interrupted by the crooks. And then the fourth book, The Riddle and the Revelry, comes out. I did talk about this already because the arc I received says it comes out February 1st, but Goodreads says that it comes out on December 31st. So if somebody can clarify when the release date of The Riddle of the Revelry is, that would be great. So for March, my anticipated new releases are I Am Made of Death. This is Kelly Andrews' new release. Kelly Andrew was an author I was introduced to through Carrie Can Read. This author is from New England. She is deaf, and I just love the disability representation in her books because the main character in her first book, The Whispering Dark, is deaf, and it's about how she goes to college and basically gets wrapped up in a murder mystery case. It's one of my favorite dark academia books that I have read this year because of the disability representation. The second book by her that I have read is called Your Blood, My Bones, which was also recommended to me by Carrie Can Read. This is like a modern retelling of Peter Pan, and I just couldn't get into the main character. I thought she was annoying and pretentious. So I DNF'd this book at 45% and gave it 2.5 stars. I gave The Whispering Dark 4.5 stars. So I am excited to see what new characters Kelly Andrew has developed and what new adventures she is going to take them on. The next new release for March I am excited about is called The River Has Roots. This is a new release by one of the authors of This Is How You Lose the Time War, which was a 4-star rating for me. This book is a similar in theme to Divine Rivals because it is focused on 2 people who are writing letters back and forth to each other during a war. But this book, This Is How You Lose the Time War, is the couple in this book start off as enemies, become friends, and then lovers through their letters. And the writing of this book was so beautiful. I can't wait to see what the writing in The River Has Roots is about and like the adventure this author will take me on. So I hope this book will be a pick for my book club at the print bookstore that I'm in. The next book is by Elsie Silver, and it is the next book in her new cowboy series called Rose Hill. I have read the first 2 books in the series called Wild Love and Wild Eyes, and I have loved them all. Both of those books got 4-star ratings. So I can't wait to see which couple this book focuses on and what the relationship dynamic between the 2 characters will be like. The next March release I am looking forward to is called Kills Well with Others. This is Deanna Raybourn's new release. She is the author of the Veronica Speedwell series, which is a series I will be reading this year after I finish reading after I finish my reread of Harry Potter. And she also wrote Killers for a Certain Age. You will like Killers for a Certain Age if you like 007 or The Golden Girls, because basically Killers of a Certain Age focuses on 3 retired assassins who are going on vacation because they're retiring, but then they get into a heat of trouble on the island that they're vacationing on because a murder mystery happens and they have to solve it. So these characters remind me so much of Dorothy, Blanche, Rose, and Sophia. It's funny, it's fun, it's adventurous, so definitely check it out. Killers of a Certain Age. So I'm excited for Kills Well with Others because I'm excited to see what kind of new characters Deanna Raybourn has developed and what kind of adventures that she will take us on. The next book is Story of My Life, which is Lucy Score's new release. Lucy Score is another one of my favorite new romance authors this year. I read her Knock 'Em Out trilogy throughout this year. I loved the whole series. My favorite character is Waylay, who is Naomi's niece, and I can't wait to see what this book will be about. The synopsis says, Hazel is given a 1-2 punch when she's forced to move out of her Upper East Side apartment and is giving a final warning from her publisher. If she doesn't turn in a book by her next deadline, they're cutting her loose. Hazel really decides to leave what's left of her city behind and impulse buys a home in rural Pennsylvania, sight unseen. How to better entertain the loyal readers she still has and rediscover her writing mojo and immersing herself in small-town life. Too bad the town looks to be on its last legs, as she's finding swoon-worthy inspiration for her hot, grumpy contractor, Cam, and the animal western community-involved family. It's all about research. What could go wrong? A note. This series is my love letter to every reader who said they wanted to move to a fictional town. So I'm excited for this book. As far as what Lucy Score said about in her dedication about how this is a love letter to her readers who wanted to be transported to a fictional town. I mean, with her Knock 'Em Out series, I loved being transported to the fictional town of Knock 'Em Out, Virginia. And I'm really excited for this new book because it's about a writer who's trying to get her mojo back, and I'm a writer who's trying to get my mojo back too, because I have been so hyper fixated on this Matthew Perry memorial fan fiction for the past year. So I'm hoping to get my mojo back and throw myself into working on my children's book again and writing a fairy tale next year. So I can definitely relate. I can already relate to this character, and this book has not even been released yet. So that's what makes me the most excited about it. The next book I wanted to talk about that I'm excited about for a new release is by Suzanne Collins. It's the second Hunger Games prequel book called Sunrise on Reaping, which is Haymitch's story. I think Haymitch is my favorite character in Hunger Games besides Katniss, so I'm excited to see what their story is going to be like. I gave The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes 4 stars, but certain aspects of Cornelius' story kind of dragged on for too long, so I might downgrade my rating to 3 instead of 4. But the final new release for March I'm anticipating, which I actually forgot to write down in my list here, is called This Book Will Bury Me. This is the latest thriller book by Ashley Winstead. I have read 2 books by Ashley Winstead. The first one is called In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which I gave 5 stars to. The second book is called Midnight is the Darkest Hour, which I gave 2 stars to. Midnight is the Darkest Hour is way too heavy on Twilight references, and that kind of really turned me off. Mostly because I reread Twilight for the first time this year since it first came out in 2007. And I do not know what attracted me so much to that series, because Edward is the biggest creep. I mean, the book that came out last year, Midnight Sun, which is Twilight from Edward's point of view, kind of sympathizes him a little bit and introduces you to his family a little bit more, which I like, but still, he's creepy. He's a stalker. And it made me realize that authors should not romanticize people who are stalkers or people who are groomers, like in My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell, which is another dark romance book that I read this year, which is about a teacher who grooms his 16-year-old student to be in a romance with him, which is gross. It made me wonder why I decided to write the subplot to my Uncle Chandler I Love You fanfiction, where Chandler basically essentially grooms my self-insert character to be in a relationship with him. And I wish I never wrote that now, because I realize now how gross that is. So, thank you for tuning in. Please leave a comment below with which books you are most excited about for the end of December and the beginning of 2025. I'm excited to hear if you are excited about these new releases or what other new releases you may be anticipating. Thank you. Have a great day.